Welcome. Welcome in and welcome down. Let your shoulders drop just a little from wherever they have been holding themselves today. Let your jaw soften. Let your tongue rest away from the roof of your mouth. There's nothing to solve here, nothing to remember, nothing to carry. Take a slow breath in if you like, and let it out even more slowly. And again, and once more. The breath does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be deep. It only needs to be yours. Tonight, you are going to walk with me along a cliff at the edge of a quiet sea. The cliff is not tall, and the sea is not rough, and no one there is in any kind of hurry. There will be mist and copper and small, pale shells. There will be terraces of shallow water, each one tuned to a slightly different note. There will be a young keeper named Wren in soft felt shoes, going about her evening rounds. You are welcome to walk beside her, or simply to watch, or to close your eyes altogether and let the sounds arrive on their own. If your body is not yet fully comfortable, take a moment now to adjust. Ease your head into the pillow. Let your hands rest heavy at your sides or folded at your belly, whichever feels kinder. Notice the weight of the blanket. Notice the temperature of the air just above your cheek. You do not have to do anything with these things. Only notice and let them be. If your mind wanders during the story, that is entirely allowed. Wandering is a good sign. It means the tight little clock of the day is beginning to loosen. You can drift away and drift back and drift away again, and none of it will be lost. The terraces will still be there. The mist will still be there. Wren will still be walking, patiently, from pool to pool. I will speak slowly. I will pause often. I will repeat the small, quiet things, the low chord of the tide pools, the felt soft footfalls on wet copper, the papery weight of empty shells, so that they can become as familiar to you as the pattern on a well-worn quilt. Let them repeat. Let them settle. The tide has just gone out. The mist is beginning to thicken. The light on the cliff face is a slow, gentle green. Wren is lacing her felt shoes. We can begin whenever you are ready. The cliff sits on the leeward side of the island, where the wind never quite reaches. It is a long, curved shoulder of stone, mineral green with old copper, streaked with softer verdigris, where centuries of small tides have run their fingers across it. From a distance, it looks like the flank of some vast, patient creature that decided long ago to lie down and let the sea keep it company. Into that flank, over many generations, keepers have carved 17 terraces. They are shallow, no deeper than a knee, most of them, and each one is a shallow oval basin, connected to the next by a narrow channel, closed with a small copper lock. When the tide is high, the sea slips in through the lowest pool and rises, terrace by terrace, until every basin is brimful and singing. When the tide is low, the pools hold what they hold, and the keepers walk between them without needing to lift their skirts, and the snails go about their unhurried grazing. The pools are tuned. That is the word the keepers use. Tuned. Each terrace has been given a slightly different mixture of salt, gathered by hand, adjusted over years, so that when the water settles at its proper level, that terrace hums a particular note. Some are low, so low you feel them in your chest before you hear them. Some are high and clear as glass. Together, when the tide is right and the wind is asleep, the 17 terraces sound a single long chord that seems to rise straight out of the cliff itself, as if the stone were breathing music. You can hear the beginning of that chord now, very faintly. Not the full sound yet. The tide is only just turning, but the first low note coming up from the lowest pool near the shoreline. It is the kind of note a large bell might make if the bell were very old and very tired and very kind. It travels up the cliff in the mist, and you feel it more than you hear it. A slow, soft weight settling into the space just below your collarbones. The mist itself is thick tonight, thick and gentle. It beads on the fine hairs of your forearms. It beads on your eyelashes when you blink. It beads on the pale spirals of the shells resting in the shallow water, and on the flat ribbons of kelp that lie draped over the lips of the pools, like green silk left out to dry. The mist does not fall. It only gathers, patient as breath. Everything is a little damp, and everything is a little warm. The copper of the cliff has been sitting in the daylight for hours, and it holds the warmth the way a hearthstone holds it, slow and steady. Where the water touches the copper, small halos of soft algae have grown, pale green, felt soft, the kind of green that seems less like a color and more like a mood. At the highest terrace, near the top of the cliff, there is a small hut. It is round and low-roofed, and its walls are made of dry stacked stone chinked with moss. Its door is open. Inside, a lantern is turning up its flame, slowly, in the hand of a young woman named Wren. Wren is not tall. Her hair is the color of wet driftwood, cut just above her shoulders and pinned back with a copper clip. Her skin has the soft weathering of someone who spends her days in mist and salt air. She is wearing a linen tunic the color of oat porridge, a woven belt of pale green cord, and, on her feet, the soft felt shoes that all the keepers wear. The shoes are important. The shoes are what allow her to walk the terraces without startling the shells. Snails, she has been taught, are very sensitive to vibration. A hard sole on wet copper sends a small shiver through the water, and a small shiver through the water is, to a snail, a very large and unnecessary weather. So the keepers wear felt. They wear felt, and they walk slowly, and they never, ever run. Wren adjusts the lantern's flame until it is small and steady. She lifts a satchel of soft canvas from a hook by the door and slings it over her shoulder. Inside the satchel, a waxed pocketbook with a stub of pencil tied to it by a length of twine, a small brass ladle, a folded cloth, a padded wooden crook no longer than her forearm, and a stoppered jar of fresh water. She checks each of these with the flat of her hand without looking, the way one checks that all the buttons of a coat are done up. Everything is where it should be. She steps out of the hut. The mist folds around her at once, as if it had been waiting. Beneath her feet, the wet copper is smooth and cool through the felt. She stands for a moment at the threshold, breathing in the salt and the mineral warmth and the faint, sweet green smell of the kelp, and she looks down along the curve of the cliff at the terraces going away below her, one after the other. 17 shallow ovals shining like scales on the flank of a sleeping thing. Then, quietly, she begins her rounds. She starts, as she always starts, at the top. The highest pool is the smallest, and its salinity is the freshest. So fresh that the water on your fingertip would taste only faintly of the sea, no more than a whisper of salt on the tongue. It hums a high, clean note, like the note of a very small bell held to the ear. Only 3 snails live here, 3 pale spirals, each no larger than a walnut, grazing along the underside of a single long ribbon of kelp. Wren crouches at the edge, careful, careful. Her felt, soft footfalls make no sound. She sets the satchel on the mossy stone beside her and takes out the pocketbook and holds it open with her thumb. She counts the snails. 1, 2, 3. She notes it down in a small, tidy hand. 3. High pool, all present. She looks under the ribbon of kelp, gently lifting it with the tip of her little finger, and she sees, along its underside, a faint, pearly stripe. A fresh ribbon of eggs laid sometime in the last day. She notes that, too. Egg ribbon, high pool, west frond. She lowers the kelp back into place with the same care with which one lowers a sleeping child's arm to the mattress. Beside the pool is a small clay jar, shaped like a tear, with a fine copper spout at its base. This is the Trickle-Jar. Fresh water drips from it, drop by slow drop, into the terrace, keeping the salinity balanced against the small evaporations of the day. Wren lifts the stopper, refills the jar from her own water jar, and resets it. Drip, drip, drip. The sound is so small, it is almost not a sound. It is more like a thought remembering itself. She moves on. The second terrace is only a step down and a little larger. Its note is slightly lower, still high, still clear, but with a softer edge to it, the way an older singer's voice softens. 7 snails live here, or should. Wren counts them, slowly, walking the perimeter of the pool. 1 on the far lip, 2 clustered beneath a fold of kelp, 1 drifted almost into the copper channel lock at the eastern edge, 3 grazing quietly in the middle. That is 7. All present. She notes it. She looks at the one near the channel lock and considers. The channel locks are small, no larger than the palm of your hand. They are little copper gates, hinged and simple, that keep the pool separate at low tide and allow water to pass between them at high tide. A snail that has drifted close to a lock has not yet crossed into the wrong salinity, but it might, given time. Wren takes up the padded crook. Its end is wrapped in soft chamois, and, with the gentleness of someone turning a page in an old book, she nudges the snail a hand's breadth back toward the center of the pool. The shell scrapes very softly against the stone, a slow, papery tick. Tick, tick. The snail does not startle. It simply continues to be a snail, only now a snail in a slightly different place. Wren straightens. She refills the Trickle-Jar. She brushes a little soft algae from the copper of the channel lock with the folded cloth. The verdigris comes away in the softest pale green flakes, like a very fine dust of mothwing. She lets them float away on the surface of the water, where they will settle back into the pool and feed something small. She moves on to the third terrace. The third pool is larger still, and its note is warmer. A middle note, one you might hum without thinking, walking home along a familiar road. 12 snails live here. She counts them slowly. Some are on the flat stones near the edge. Some are half hidden under kelp ribbons that stretch long across the water, like the sleeves of a linen gown left drifting. The kelp brushes against her bare wrist as she leans down. It is cool and slightly springy, and it smells faintly of cucumber and salt. She lets it slip past her wrist without gathering it back. There is no hurry. She counts 12. 12, all present. She notes it. There are 2 fresh egg ribbons in this pool, one on the underside of the north frond and one closer to the middle. She writes them both down. Egg ribbon, third pool, north frond. egg ribbon, third pool, middle frond. The pencil makes a tiny, dry sound against the waxed paper. It is the smallest possible sound, and she likes it, and she pauses for a moment just to hear it. Behind her and above her, the mist has thickened another shade. The light coming through it is that verdigris green, the color of old copper and young leaves mixed. It is a light without edges. It softens everything. The outlines of the terraces, the shape of her own hands, the curve of the cliff going down. In this light, distances lose their meaning. A pool 3 steps away and a pool 30 steps away seem to sit at the same gentle remove. She moves on to the 4th terrace. Here, she finds a small puzzle. 9 snails should live in the 4th pool. She counts 8. She counts again. Still 8. She does not worry. It is very rare for a snail to be actually lost, and impossible for one to have hurried anywhere. She simply looks. She walks the perimeter once, slowly, her felt soft footfalls making no sound, and she looks along the shallow edges, into the folds of kelp, into the pale shadows behind the stones. She finds the 9th snail sitting quite comfortably against the copper of the channel lock between the 4th pool and the 5th. It has decided, at some point during the day, that the 5th pool looked interesting. The lock is closed. It cannot cross. It is only leaning, patiently, as snails lean. Wren smiles. She takes up the padded crook, and with a motion so slow it looks like the beginning of a bow, she nudges the shell back into the pool it belongs to. The snail slides a hand's breadth in the right direction, and then continues, undisturbed, to be a snail. Tick, tick. The soft, dry sound of shell against stone. She notes it in the pocketbook. 9, 4th pool, 1 gently returned from the lock. She refills the trickle-jar. She brushes the soft algae from the copper. The mist beads on her eyelashes, and she blinks it away without hurry. From below, the low chord of the tide pools has begun to fill in. Not all 17 notes yet. The tide has not risen far enough for that. But perhaps 5 or 6 of the lower pools are singing now, softly, in their different pitches. The sound is not loud. It is the kind of sound you feel more than hear. It sits under the mist like a large, slow breath. She moves on. The 5th terrace is broader than the 4th, and its salinity is a little richer. Its note is a slow, round tone, the sort of note that carries a long way in a quiet room. 15 snails live here, all of them a shade darker than the ones in the higher pools. A pale honey color, with fine spiral markings, like the growth rings of a young tree. Wren counts them by 5s. 5, 10, 15, all present. She notes it. She refills the trickle-jar. She brushes the lock. By now, her rhythm has settled into something you could set a slow clock by. Approach, crouch, count, note, adjust, if adjustment is needed. Refill, brush, stand, move on. She has walked these terraces so many times that her feet no longer need her attention. Her hands no longer need her attention. Only her eyes and her ears are working, and even they are working softly, the way a candle burns softly at the end of a long evening. At the 6th terrace, she pauses longer than usual. There is a snail here that she has been watching for weeks, a large one, the size of a small plum, with a shell that spirals in an unusually clean whirl. It has been laying egg ribbons quite regularly, and Wren has been noting each one with a small, quiet satisfaction. Today there's a new ribbon, laid along a fresh kelp frond, and she writes it down, for a moment, just looks. The snail is grazing. It is doing what snails do, which is very little at any particular moment, and everything, eventually, that a snail needs to do. There is a lesson in this, she thinks, though she does not try to hold on to it. Lessons do not need to be held. They are like the mist. They arrive, they sit on your eyelashes, and then, in their own time, they roll softly away. She moves on. The 7th, 8th, and 9th terraces come in a gentle rhythm. At the 7th, 17 snails, all present. 2 egg ribbons noted, trickle-jar refilled, 1 small piece of algae brushed from the lock. At the 8th, 19 snails, all present. 1 egg ribbon, 1 snail gently returned from the lock, trickle-jar refilled. At the 9th, 21 snails, all present. 3 egg ribbons, no adjustments needed, trickle-jar refilled, algae brushed. The notes of the terraces are lower now, richer, warmer. The chord is filling in. The mist is greener. The copper beneath her felt shoes is still warm, still smooth. Somewhere, far below, a single seabird makes a single soft sound and then is quiet again. Even the birds here do not raise their voices. She pauses at a small alcove between the 9th and the 10th pool and takes a sip from her water jar. The water is cool. It tastes of clay and of the little copper cup she has fastened to the jar's lip. She stands for a moment, letting the mist bead on her forearms, letting her breath slow, letting the low chord of the terraces settle into her ribs. Then she stoppers the jar, adjusts the satchel on her shoulder, and moves on. At the 10th terrace, another keeper is finishing her rounds and going the other way. She's older than Wren, silver in her hair, felt shoes worn soft at the toes, and she is called Maeve. When they meet, they do not speak. Speech is not what one does on the terraces. Maeve lifts one hand in a small, warm gesture, palm turned toward Wren. Wren lifts hers in return. They smile. They pass each other without a word. The felt of their shoes makes no sound against the wet copper. Only the low chord continues, patient beneath everything. Wren watches for just a moment as Maeve's shape softens into the mist and then disappears. The mist here is thick enough that a person can walk into it and simply become part of it, the way a drop of ink becomes part of a bowl of water. It does not feel like losing anyone. It feels like the mist is generous, and it is willing to hold whoever it holds, for as long as they wish to be held. Wren turns back to the 10th pool. 24 snails, all present. 2 egg ribbons, trickle-jar refilled, algae brushed. She notes it all. She moves on. The 11th terrace is where the salinity begins to feel like proper seawater, and where the snail's shells are the deepest honey, almost amber in the verdigris light. Its note is one of the loveliest of all, a warm, middle-low tone that seems to come from the stone itself. She could sit beside this pool for a long time, just listening, and sometimes, on her days off, she does. Tonight, she counts. 28, all present. 3 egg ribbons, trickle-jar, algae. She notes it all. She stays perhaps a breath longer than at the other pools, just to listen, and then she moves on. The 12th, the 13th, the 14th. Each pool larger than the last. Each pool a little lower in its note. Each pool a little richer in its salinity. At each, she counts and notes and adjusts and refills and brushes. The rhythm is now so gentle that she is barely thinking. Her hands know what to do. Her feet know where to step. Her eyes know where to look. The pocketbook fills, page by page, with a small, tidy record of an evening. At the 12th, 32 snails, all present, 2 egg ribbons, 1 gentle nudge back from the lock. At the 13th, 36 snails, all present, 4 egg ribbons, no adjustments. At the 14th, 40 snails, all present, 3 egg ribbons, 2 nudges, 1 from the eastern lock, 1 from a shallow spot near the Trickle-Jar, where a snail seemed to be considering climbing the clay. Wren notes each of these things without comment, without judgment. The snails are doing what they do. Her job is only to see and to help and to note. The 15th terrace is one of her favorites. It is broader still, nearly the size of a small room, and its bottom is lined with pale sand that the sea deposited long ago, before the terraces were carved. In the sand grow small, dark tufts of a soft plant that looks like moss, but is not. The snails here graze on this plant, and on the kelp equally, and they are especially calm. Big, slow, ambling shells, the color of dark honey. Its note is low enough that when it is sounding, Wren feels it in her jaw, a warm, slow vibration, like the note of a very old wooden instrument. She counts 45 snails, all present. She kneels at the edge and looks along the underside of the longest kelp ribbon. There are 5 egg ribbons here, 5 of them, laid in a row like the pale seams of a well-embroidered sleeve. She notes each one. 5 egg ribbons, 15th pool, longest frond. She smiles and lowers the kelp back into the water and refills the Trickle-Jar and brushes the lock. She moves on. The 16th terrace sits just above the shore, and the sea itself is very close now. You can hear it, not loudly, only the softest sound of small waves folding themselves onto smooth stones, over and over, patient as a heartbeat. The tide has risen far enough that the lowest channel lock is beginning to draw water. She hears the small copper hinge sigh once and then settle. Water is moving. The Chord is filling. At the 16th pool, 49 snails, all present. She counts them slowly, twice, because there are so many. 49. She notes it. 4 egg ribbons, 1 long, 3 shorter. She notes them. 2 gentle nudges, 1 from the lock, 1 from a small curl of kelp where a snail had wandered nearly onto dry stone. She sets the crook down, refills the Trickle-Jar, brushes the algae, and stands. The 17th terrace is the lowest and largest. It is the deepest, too, as deep as her hip in places, and its salinity is that of the open sea, no more, no less. Its note is the deepest of all. When the pool is full and the tide is high, it hums a bass so low that you feel it in the soles of your feet before you feel it anywhere else. Now, at half tide, it is only beginning to sound. A slow, warm, distant drum. 53 snails live in the 17th pool. She counts them. 53, all present. 5 egg ribbons. She notes them. No adjustments. The snails of the 17th are wise old snails, and they know their pool very well. She refills the Trickle-Jar, which is the largest of all the Trickle-Jars, and takes an extra moment to check its copper spout for any small blockage. It is clean. She brushes the algae from the great copper lock at the pool's edge, the lock through which the sea itself will pour in time. Then she stands at the 17th pool and looks out at the sea. The sea is very quiet tonight. Its surface is a soft pewter green, dulled by mist, moving without haste. Small waves gather themselves, lean forward, and fold onto the shore below. Fold, 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 each one no louder than a sigh. The tide is coming in. The chord is rising. All the terraces above her, all 17 of them, are beginning to sound at once. Some strongly, some faintly, some only just barely. And the whole cliff is beginning to hum. Wren closes the pocketbook. She ties its little twine loop around the pencil. She slides both into the satchel. Her rounds are done. The counting is finished. The nudging is finished. The refilling is finished. The brushing is finished. What remains is only the sitting and the listening and the small supper she has carried with her from the hut. She turns and walks slowly back up the cliff, terrace by terrace. She does not stop at any of them now. She only passes beside them, letting each note wash gently over her shoulder as she goes. Deep bass at the 17th, warm bass at the 16th, warm low tone at the 15th, middle low at the 14th, middle at the 13th and 12th, round middle at the 11th, lovely middle low at the 10th, slower notes still, up and up through the 9th and 8th and 7th, into the middle notes of the 6th and 5th, into the higher, cleaner tones of the 4th and 3rd and 2nd, and finally, at the top, the small, bright note of the first pool, the highest one. The whole chord follows her upward, the way a warm blanket seems to follow you when you shift beneath it. At the top, she does not go into the hut. Instead, she steps around it to a place along the cliff's shoulder where a shelf of stone juts out just wide enough to sit on. The stone is covered with a thick, soft cushion of moss. Moss the color of the sea and shadow. Moss that has been growing there longer than anyone can remember. Beneath the cushion, the stone is warm. Warm from a day of holding the mist and the muted light. Above the cushion, the mist is silver and green and thick as breath. She sits. The moss gives beneath her slowly until it has taken her weight, and then it holds her, patient and generous. It is like sitting on the flank of some very large and very calm animal. She lets her satchel down beside her. She loosens the ties of her tunic collar. She breathes. For a long moment, she does nothing. She only sits and listens and lets the chord rise. 6, 7, 8 of the pools are sounding fully now. 9, 10. The chord is not loud. It never becomes loud, but it fills. It fills the way a bowl fills under a slow stream, quietly and completely, and with no fuss at all. After a while, she reaches into the satchel and takes out a small covered bowl. The bowl is wooden, turned smooth by many meals, and its lid is a small round of woven reeds. She sets the lid aside. Inside the bowl is warm barley, grains that have been simmering all afternoon in a soft porridge with a knob of sea butter and a pinch of salt. The steam rises slowly, curling into the mist, disappearing into the mist, becoming the mist. The smell is the smell of home. It is a mineral smell, a warm smell, the smell of barley and sea butter, a little grassy, a little nutty, faintly salty, faintly sweet. It sits in the back of her throat like a small kindness. From a pocket in her belt, she takes out a small wooden spoon. She dips it into the porridge. She lifts it to her mouth. She eats. The barley is soft and warm, and just salty enough. The sea butter has melted into every grain, coating everything in a slow yellow richness. She chews slowly, because it is that kind of food, and that kind of evening. She takes another spoonful, and another. The warmth of the porridge spreads down her throat and into her chest and outward, into her shoulders, into her arms. The moss holds her from below. The mist holds her from above. She is held gently on all sides. Between spoonfuls, she listens. The chord is nearly full now. 12 of the pools are singing. 13. The lowest note, the great slow bass of the 17th, is coming up through the copper of the cliff, coming up through the stone of the ledge, coming up through the moss, coming up through her body, up her spine, and settling into the back of her skull. It is a note that lives in bones. She takes a small sip from her water jar. The water tastes cool and clay and a little of the sea. She swallows. She goes back to the barley. Somewhere below her, in the 15th pool, a snail is drawing itself back into its shell for the night. She cannot see this, but she knows it, because she has watched it many times. The snail folds its soft body slowly, slowly, into the pale spiral house it has built and mended over many months. It settles. It rests. In the 16th pool, another snail is doing the same. In the 17th, another. In each pool, at each terrace, the snails are drawing back into their shells, one by one, and going quiet. The papery weight of an empty spiral shell is a very small weight. It is hardly a weight at all. It is the weight of thistledown, of a single dry leaf, of a folded feather. When she picks one up, an old, abandoned shell from a snail long since gone, she is always surprised at how it seems almost to hover in her palm. Tonight, of course, she does not pick any up. Tonight, the shells are all occupied, all soft-bodied inhabitants folding themselves inward for sleep. She only listens and imagines the small, papery hush of each shell as its inhabitant draws away from the world for the night. She finishes the barley slowly. There is no rush. There's never been any rush. At the bottom of the bowl, there's a last pool of warm sea butter, just a spoonful, and she scoops it up and licks the spoon clean. And then, with the folded cloth, she wipes the bowl clean too. The bowl and the spoon go back into the satchel. The lid of the bowl goes back on. Everything back where it belongs. She stretches her legs out along the ledge. The moss is warm beneath her calves. She leans back against the stone of the cliff, which is also warm, and which is soft with more moss where it meets her shoulders. Her hands rest in her lap. Her breath moves in her chest, slow and even. The lantern in the hut is still burning, small and steady. She can see its glow through the round doorway, a small, warm eye in the mist. The chord is nearly complete. 15 pools. 16. The tide is nearly at its full height. The last channel lock at the 17th pool is drawing steadily, and water is climbing patiently up the cliff, terrace by terrace, tuning each pool as it goes. The mist has taken on a slightly darker green. Evening is arriving, though it has not yet come. She closes her eyes for a moment. She opens them. She closes them again. She does not fall asleep. It is not yet time to sleep. She only rests. She lets the cord fill her chest and her belly and her fingertips. She feels the mist beading on her eyelashes. She lets it bead. She does not blink it away. She lets the small, cool drops sit there, tiny beads of sea and cloud, weighing almost nothing on the fine hairs of her lashes. She thinks, in a soft and drifting way, of the pool that was tricky today, the 4th, where the 9th snail had wandered to the lock. She thinks of it now, not as a puzzle, but as a small, quiet friendliness, the kind of thing you smile at later, remembering. She thinks of the 15th pool and its 5 egg ribbons. 5. That is a good number. In a few weeks, the ribbons will become tiny snails, and the tiny snails will begin their tiny, slow lives, and the 15th pool will hold more of them than it holds now. It is a good pool. It is doing well. She thinks of Maeve, passing her in the mist with a lifted hand. She lifts her own hand now, just a little, mirroring the small, warm gesture, though there is no one there to see it. It is a private greeting and a private good night, sent out into the mist just in case. The chord fills. 17 pools. Every terrace is singing. The whole cliff is humming a low, patient, contented chord. The kind of chord that seems to have been waiting for many years to be heard, and that will keep sounding all through the night until the tide begins its slow retreat toward morning. Wren breathes it in. She breathes it out. She breathes it in. She breathes it out. The lantern in the hut burns small and steady. The mist beads on her lashes. The moss holds her. The stone holds her. The cord holds her. The snails, folded into their shells, are quiet. Now let your attention drift, if it wishes. Let it drift back, if it wishes, to the felt, soft footfalls on wet copper. Let it drift back to the small, papery tick of a shell against stone. Let it drift back to the smell of warm barley and sea butter, curling up into the mist and becoming the mist. Let it drift back to the verdigris green light through the fog, and the cool salt on the tongue, and the slow bass note of the 17th pool coming up through the bones. Or let it drift away entirely. Let it go somewhere quiet and stay there. You do not have to hold on to any of this. The story will keep itself. The mist will keep the cliff. The chord will keep the pools. The pools will keep the snails. The snails will keep the shells. The shells will keep the sleeping. There's nothing you need to remember. There's nothing you need to carry. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Feel the softness of the pillow beneath your head. Feel the warmth of the blanket over you. Notice how your breath is moving all on its own now. In, out, in, out, without any help from you. The mist is thick. The cord is low. The moss is warm. Wren sits at the top of the cliff, her hands in her lap, her eyes half closed, listening. Below her, the snails rest. Below them, the sea folds itself patiently onto the smooth stones of the shore. Above her, the mist gathers and beads and gathers. Everything is very slow. Everything is very safe. Everything is very quiet. Let your jaw soften. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands grow heavy. Let your feet grow heavy. Let your breath grow slow. The cord is holding you. The moss is holding you. The mist is holding you. The stone is holding you. Somewhere below, a single small tick of shell against stone, then quiet. Another tick, then quiet. The papery weight of the shells settling for the night. The slow bass of the 17th pool coming up through the cliff. The high, clean note of the first pool, faint and small at the top. All the notes between. The chord. Wren's eyes close. Not all the way. Only enough. The lantern in the hut burns small and steady. The mist beads on her lashes. The moss holds her. And now, let yourself close your eyes too, if they're not already closed. Let the mist bead on your lashes. Let the moss hold you. Let the cord fill you, softly, from below. Let the small, papery hush of the shells settle you. Let the smell of warm barley and sea butter drift somewhere at the edge of you. Let the cool salt on your tongue fade into a whisper. Let the verdigris green light through the fog dim, slowly to a soft dark. There's nothing more to do. There's nothing more to see. There's nothing more to count. The snails are quiet. The pools are singing. The cliff is humming. Wren is resting. You are resting. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Softer now. Slower now. Heavier now. The cord holds. The mist holds. The moss holds. Rest here. Rest here for as long as you like. Rest here all night, if you wish. The terraces will keep their notes. The snails will keep their shells. Wren will keep her ledge. The mist will keep the cliff. And you will keep nothing. You will only sleep. 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 Sleep now. And if some small part of you is still listening, some small, quiet part still awake at the edge of the mist, let it come with me a little further. Only a little further. Only as far as the moss will carry you. The night on the cliff deepens. The verdigris green light thins and thins, and finally becomes only a color you remember, not a color you see. The fog turns the color of old silver, then the color of soft wool, then no color at all. The pools sing on. They do not need eyes to sing. They do not need light. They have their water and their stone and their long, patient throats, and that is enough. The 17th pool, down at the bottom, keeps its slow bass note. You can feel it more than hear it now. A soft pulse in the cliff. A soft pulse in the moss. A soft pulse under your ribs. The first pool, up at the top, keeps its high, clean note. So small, so far above, like a single star, if a star could be a sound. And all the pools between hold their places in the chord. None of them hurry. None of them tire. They have been singing since long before Wren was born, and they will be singing long after. Tonight, they are singing for her. Tonight, they are singing for you. Wren has curled onto her side on the moss. Her cheek rests on the folded wool of her coat. Her hands are tucked close. Her breath is long and even. Somewhere near her hip, a small snail, the one with the pale ring around its shell, has crept up onto the fold of her sleeve and gone still there, as snails do when they are content. She does not know it is there. It does not mind. The lantern in the hut has burned down a little, just a little. The wick trims itself in the way that good wicks do, and the flame settles into a small round bead of light, enough to see by, if anyone needed to see. No one needs to see. The mist moves, not quickly, slowly, the way mist always moves on this cliff, like something breathing in its sleep. It rolls up from the sea below, cool and salt-heavy, and it climbs the terraces one by one, past the 17th pool, past the 16th, past the 15th, past the 14th, up and up, in its own quiet way, past all the numbers you no longer need to count. It reaches Wren's ledge. It curls around her. It beads on the moss. It beads on the wool of her coat. It beads on the pale ring of the small snail's shell. And then it moves on, past the ledge, past the hut, up toward the first pool and the top of the cliff, where it thins and becomes sky. Somewhere out beyond the cliff, the sea is doing what the sea does, rising, falling, rising, falling. You do not need to hear it to know it is there. You can feel it, the way you feel the 17th pool, as a slow pulse under everything. Breathe in with the sea. Breathe out with the sea. Breathe in. Breathe out. The kettle in the hut has long gone quiet. The barley pot has cooled. The small crock of sea butter has closed its wooden lid. The wooden spoon rests where Wren left it, across the rim of the bowl. Everything is where it should be. Nothing has been forgotten. On the shelf above the little stove, the row of glass jars keeps its patient order. Dried kelp, dried thyme, dried barley, coarse salt, fine salt, the small, dark jar of clover honey. Their labels are written in Wren's careful hand. They will still be there in the morning. They will still be there many mornings after. And the snails. The snails are everywhere and nowhere. On the moss, in the seams of the stone, under the eaves of the hut, along the ropes that guide the walking path. Each one has folded itself into its papery shell. Each one has grown a little quieter. Each one is doing exactly what it was made to do, resting, waiting, keeping its small round house. If you listen, softly, softly, without trying, you can hear the shells settle. A tiny, papery hush. Then another. Then another. Hundreds of them across the terraces, all through the night, settling and settling and settling. It is a sound so small that it almost is not a sound. It is only the shape of a sound, the idea of a sound. A hush. The chord holds. The mist holds. The moss holds. You are held. There is a long, gentle moment now. You do not need to fill it. You do not need to do anything with it. Simply let it be long. Simply let it be gentle. If a thought comes, any thought, let it drift like the mist. Up from the sea, past the terraces, past the pools, past the hut, up into the sky, where it thins and becomes nothing at all. If a small worry comes, some small warm creature of a worry, let it curl into a shell of its own on the moss beside you. Let it grow quiet. Let it rest. It has been carrying itself all day. It is tired. It too would like to sleep. There is room here for all of it. The cliff is very old and very patient. The pools have room in their song for many, many notes. One more will not trouble them. One more never troubles them. Breathe in, breathe out. Softer, slower, heavier. The lantern in the hut burns down another small measure. The flame is only a bead now. Only a small, warm bead of light inside the paper shade. Soon it will lower itself the rest of the way in its own good time, and the hut will be dark. But not yet. Not quite yet. The bead of light waits. It is patient too. Everything on this cliff is patient. Wren shifts once in her sleep and settles again. The small snail on her sleeve does not stir. The moss beneath her gives just a little, the way good moss gives. Her breath is long. Her breath is even. Her breath is the breath of someone who has done her day's work well and has laid it down entirely. Lay yours down too. Everything you carried into this evening, you may set it here on the moss. The cliff will keep it for you. The cliff has kept many things, for many people, for a very long time. It knows how. Set down the list of the day. Set down the tasks not finished. Set down the words not said, and the words said too quickly. Set down the small ache in the shoulders. Set down the small ache behind the eyes. Set down the shape of tomorrow. Tomorrow will find you. You do not need to go looking for it. Only rest. Only sleep. Only be held by the moss and the mist and the chord. The 17th pool sings its slow bass note. The The first pool sings its high, clean note. All the notes between hold their places. The cliff hums, the shells hush, the lantern glows. Wren sleeps. You sleep. Or you are close to sleep, which is very nearly the same thing. Somewhere on the 11th terrace, or perhaps the 12th, it does not matter, a single drop of mist gathers on a leaf of moss and grows heavy and falls. It falls into a pool. The pool takes it in. The note of that pool deepens for one heartbeat, very slightly, and then returns to itself. The chord adjusts. The chord always adjusts. The chord is never surprised. Another drop, another pool, another small deepening, another return. All night long, the mist will feed the pools. All night long, the pools will sing to the cliff. All night long, the cliff will hum to the sea. All night long, the sea will rise and fall against the stone. All night long, you will not need to do any of it. It happens without you. It has always happened without you. It always will. There's a great kindness in that. Let it be a kindness to you tonight. The lantern lowers itself the last small measure. The bead of light thins. The bead of light softens. The bead of light goes out. Not with any sound, only with a small absence of glow. The hut is dark now. The hut is warm. The kettle is quiet. The jars are patient on their shelf. Everything is well. Outside the hut, the mist is silver where it used to be green. The moss is dark. The stone is dark. The pools are dark and singing. The snails are dark and resting. Wren is dark and sleeping. You are dark and sleeping. If you are still awake, even a little, that is all right. Sleep will come. It is on its way. It is already on the path. It is already climbing the terraces. It is already at your ledge. It smells faintly of cedar. It smells faintly of warm barley. It smells faintly of sea butter and clover honey. It sounds faintly of the chord, the slow bass, the high, clean note, all the notes between. It feels faintly of moss under your cheek, and mist on your lashes, and wool folded soft beneath your head. Sleep is not far. Sleep is not far at all. Breathe in, breathe out. Softer, slower, heavier. The chord holds, the mist holds, the moss holds, the cliff holds. You are held. There's a small, warm thought that wants to come, near the end of every evening on this cliff, and Wren has never spoken it aloud, because it does not need speaking. It is only a shape. It is the shape of being welcome. Welcome on the ledge. Welcome in the hut. Welcome among the pools. Welcome among the snails. Welcome in the chord. You are welcome here. You have always been welcome here. You may come back whenever you wish. The cliff will remember. The pools will remember. The moss will remember. Wren will remember in her patient way and set an extra bowl on the low table for you. But tonight, there's nothing more to do than rest. Tonight, there's only the moss under your cheek and the mist on your lashes and the chord in the stone beneath you. Tonight, there's only sleep. Let it come. Let it come the rest of the way. The 17th pool sings low. The first pool sings high. Between them, the chord. Between them, the cliff. Between them, you. Rest. Rest. The night is long. The night is kind. The night is wide enough for all of you. Every part of you. The tired part. The busy part. The quiet part. The small, warm creature part that only ever wanted to lie down on the moss. Let it lie down. Let all of it lie down. Nothing needs to be finished. Nothing needs to be decided. Nothing needs to be counted. Nothing needs to be kept. Only breathe. Only rest. Only sleep. The mist beads. The moss holds. The cord fills. The shells hush. The lantern is out. The hut is warm. Wren dreams softly of nothing in particular. You may dream too, or you may not dream at all. Either is well. Either is welcome. Breathe in. Breathe out. Softer. Slower. Heavier. The cliff holds. The cord holds. You are held. Rest here. Rest here for as long as you like. Rest here all night. Rest here into the morning if you wish. The pools will not mind, and the mist will not mind, and Wren will not mind, and the small snail with the pale ring on its shell will not mind at all. You have arrived. You are here. You are safe. You are warm. You are held. Sleep now. Sleep gently. Sleep slowly. Sleep all the way through. The cord will keep singing while you sleep. The mist will keep rising while you sleep. The moss will keep holding while you sleep. The cliff will keep humming while you sleep. Wren will keep resting while you sleep. And you will keep nothing. You will only sleep. 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 Good night, dear listener. Good night from the cliff of singing pools. Good night from the hut with its patient jars. Good night from the moss and the mist and the cord. Good night from Wren, asleep on her ledge with a small snail settled on her sleeve. Good night. Sleep well. Sleep long. Sleep deeply and rest.